Well, you know, I came from a family of educators, so both my parents were professors, and which is unusual in Shake Rag, Tennessee, which I already said I was from. But, you know, I knew that it was really important to have a strong foundation of education and, you know, something that, an employable skill.
Right.
So I worked, you know, I took that very seriously, and it's just tough because, like I said, when you're driven to do music, you know you've got to do it somehow, but, you know, dealing with the realities of, you know, a lot of people in the music business are unemployed, or they don't, you know, they're just scraping by. And so I did have that other side of me, you know, that was pulling me in another direction, kind of saying, okay, be smart, you know, be practical. And I really love where I am right now in my career because I feel like I've finally struck a balance that feels right, and I don't feel like I'm making any sacrifices anymore.
Right.
So it feels really good. But going back to your first question about my gig, the first gig that I ever had.
How was that?
Well, okay, so when you're driven to do music and you have this, you know, desire even as a child, I was always begging my parents, you know, let me try out for this, take me to this, and, you know, anything I heard about. And we were living in Dallas at the time, and I had done something in like a Christmas play at church, and the choir director had told me about some friends of his that he was like, hey, they're looking for some kids to come and audition to do this TV show. You know, I'd love for you to go do it. So, of course, I was like, yes, please take me, let's do it. So I went and auditioned for them, and it happened to be that they were casting for this show called Barney and Friends that was on PBS, yeah. Which ended up getting picked up and running for years on PBS. So I had no idea at the time, you know, nobody knew anything about it. It was just like, it's a show about a purple dinosaur and, you know, uses imagination. And
every 2-year-old seen that show.
Right, right. So, but I definitely,
and every parent.
You know, we were just, I got cast with 5 other kids that actually just did the voice acting for the children that were appearing on the show. And I'm not exactly sure how that happened, where they, you know, but the children they had didn't sing. So basically they needed kids to sing for them. So I was a casting.
And you raised your hand?
I was like, yes, me, I'll do it. So it was great. I always joke like that was the best job I ever had. Because, I mean.
So in 2006 you released your first CD.
Right, my first CD of original music.
What was the experience like making that first CD and creating your own music and seeing that come to fruition?
Really scary, because what you don't think about when you're doing that kind of thing is that it does live on forever. Like you are, you know, when you record something, I mean, it really does. It's out there.
And at that point in your life, it's whatever was experiencing.
Right.
Whatever you were experiencing at that point in your life, that's what you put out there.
That's what you're putting out there. That's what you're writing about. And your first record, you know, you're so green. I didn't know anything about, I didn't know how to make a record. I knew, you know, hear my songs, and then, you know, there was no path in my mind. I couldn't see it. So, anyway, learned a lot doing that first one. But
what was it like being in the studio?
Well, that was easy because, you know, having done Barney for
right.
30 years, you know, you
were experienced at that point, right?
Very studio experience, yeah. But trying to produce your own music or having opinions like, what do I want the drums to do there? I mean, I'd never considered any of that stuff before, so everybody's got to have a first record, and it's
Oh, yeah, exactly. And so how would you describe your music, and along those lines, what artists has sort of influenced you along the way?
Gosh. I mean, I love folk music, so, you know, when I was a teenager, I sort of went back through the whole, like, 70s folk catalog, you know, just listening to all those great singer-songwriters. And like Cat Stevens and James Taylor and
love Cat Stevens.
Yeah, I do too. I love his like raw energy. Like so much of his stuff is just like so strong in this really raw way, which really was cool to me. And then, you know, when I started writing songs more, you know, musical taste change and stuff. I started listening to Ryan Adams. I had a big Sheryl Crow phase because I just thought she looked so cool playing bass and singing at the same time.
I think Sheryl Crow is
she's so cool.
Very cool.
Yes, she is so cool. And also she's sort of like from the same area I was from, and you know, had similar. I just looked up to her a lot, being somebody that came from a totally different field of study. Like she was a school teacher first, and you know, then she went and started doing music and singing backup for people, and really just made her path. And
so in a way similar to you,
cool.
which is
Yeah.
you had a professional career and you're trying to make that transition into music.
Right. Yeah. So I really respected her for forging, you know, a similar path, and just thought it was really cool.
So in 2010, you put out another CD, and what was the name of the CD?
White Gold.
White Gold, that's right.
It
White
was a
Gold.
double EP that we released. I say we because that was around the time that I met Richard Thomas, who's my husband now.
I think you fell in love, right? And
Yes.
then you're producing a CD, and you're in love, and you're getting married, and the whole bit, right?
It was really, I would not really recommend what, and if anybody knows what it's like to plan a wedding, it's already pretty crazy and stressful, and you go through it's like an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
So then trying to complete a record on top of that, you know, and everything that goes into just like, you know, that is a very like forcefully created thing. You have to just, it's persistence of making everything come out the exact way you want it to, when you need it to, and organizing and delegating and coordinating with all these different pieces and parts. So we were doing both at the same time, and that was, I mean, I definitely had more than one or two emotional breakdowns during the process, but what ended up being, the reason I would not trade it is because it was so cool. We started doing the record when I got engaged, and we released the record when we got married on our wedding day.
Oh, that's great.
So we
what a great wedding gift.
Yeah, we actually gave out copies to our people at our reception.
Yeah, that's great.
So it was something that I always will treasure, you know, remembering that. So
that's wonderful. And was the experience different 4 years later, putting out another CD?
It was completely different, totally different. For one thing, I, you know, was working with completely different people. I had also had 4 more years of doing this.
Life experience.
Yeah, life experience, and also just musical experience, kind of playing with a band.
Sure.
Figuring out like how do I kind of want these songs to sound, and figuring out what my sound is. So when you go back,
did you feel